It took me 60 years to realize what I am about to share with you in the next few minutes. And I want you to hear it now, so you do not have to spend decades walking the same winding road that I did. If somebody had whispered these truths to me when I was 30, maybe even 40, I would have made very different choices. But life does not work that way. We learn through mistakes. We grow through wrong turns. And sometimes, the only way forward is to look back with honesty. So let me begin here. For most of my life, I wore a mask. Not a physical mask, but the kind you put on when you want the world to see a version of you that feels safer, cleaner, maybe even more impressive. I wanted to look strong, confident, and successful, even when I was crumbling inside. I wanted to be the man who had it all together. The man people could admire, respect, and even envy a little. But here is the truth. Pretending to be someone you are not is exhausting. It drains your spirit. It steals the joy out of ordinary days. I used to walk into rooms and wonder if people liked me. Now I walk into rooms and wonder if I like myself in their company. That is a very different way to live. I remember one evening in particular. I was standing in front of the bathroom mirror, tie loosened after another 12-hour day. I stared at my own reflection, and I barely recognized the man looking back. Was he proud of himself? Or was he simply tired of keeping up the act? That was the moment I realized authenticity is not optional. It is the foundation of a life worth living. Being yourself, quirks and all, is the only way to attract the people who truly belong in your life. Some will love your crooked smile, your odd humor, your imperfect ways. Some will not, and that is perfectly fine. Because for every person who does not connect, there will be another who feels at home in your presence. I wish I had learned that earlier. It would have saved me years of pretending and years of unnecessary pressure. But that lesson ties directly into another. The trap of keeping up appearances. The trap of comparing your life to your neighbors and thinking you have to match or even outdo them. I grew up in an American suburb, where image was everything. Your neighbor bought a new car, and suddenly you felt embarrassed about yours, even if it ran perfectly. They moved to a better school district, and you began wondering if you were failing your children by not doing the same. You went to backyard barbecues where the conversation circled who just upgraded their kitchen or who booked their next vacation. And without realizing it, you started measuring your life by someone else's ruler. I cannot tell you how many times I spent money I did not truly have just to keep up. How many times have I stretched my budget until it groaned under the weight of unnecessary debt? At the time, it felt like progress. In reality, it was quicksand. The more I reached for an image, the deeper I sank. And here is the cruel twist. None of it brought me joy. Not the shiny car, not the bigger house, not the gadgets that arrived in glossy boxes. What they brought me was temporary excitement, followed by a hollow silence. I see this now more clearly than ever. Stuff never fills the emptiness. It only clutters the space where joy could live. The first time this truth really hit me, I was sitting in Costa Rica, in a small coastal town called Santa Teresa. The kind of place where the streets are still dusty, the cafes are simple, and the sunsets paint the sky in colors you cannot capture on a phone. I was drinking coffee with locals, watching surfers paddle out into the waves. There was nothing luxurious about that moment. But it felt richer than any luxury I had ever purchased. I realized right there, joy is not delivered in cardboard boxes left at your front door. It is discovered in connection, in laughter, in shared meals, in long conversations that wander late into the night. It is found in the warmth of a hug from your child, or the thrill of trying something new, even if you fail. That moment stayed with me. Because once you taste the real thing, all the substitutes lose their flavor, and you begin to crave something simpler. So where does that leave us? It leaves us with a choice. We can keep chasing the image, or we can simplify. We can keep stacking our lives with things that break, or we can invest in what truly lasts. For me, that turning point came when I finally admitted I did not want more. I wanted less clutter, less pressure, less noise. I wanted space for joy, space for rest, space for the people I love. And here is where my story shifts into the lesson that took me far too long to learn. Health is worth more than wealth. And yet, for decades, I made the same mistake many of us do. I sacrificed my body to build my bank account. I told myself I would take care of my health later, when things slowed down, when I had more time. But time does not wait, and neither does health. I was 60 when it finally sank in. All the money in the world could not buy me a single extra heartbeat. It could not give me back the mornings I had skipped breakfast just to rush out the door. It could not erase the years I told myself sleep was a luxury I could not afford. And it definitely could not undo the damage of stress that I had quietly carried like a backpack full of bricks. One morning in Costa Rica, I laced up my shoes and went for a run on the beach. The sand was warm, the waves roared beside me, and for a brief moment, I felt free. But after only a few minutes, my chest was tight, my breath shallow. I had been so focused on building financial independence that I had neglected the very vessel carrying me through life. That morning became a mirror I could not look away from. It was the first time I said out loud, "My health is worth more than my wealth." Because wealth without health is a cruel joke. You save, you sacrifice, you finally arrive at a place where you can enjoy what you built, and then your body refuses to cooperate. I have seen it happen to friends. Men who worked tirelessly, who dreamed of the golf trips, the travel, the long retirement with family. And then, suddenly, a diagnosis. Diabetes, heart disease, a fall that changed everything. And just like that, their plans vanished. I promised myself I would not follow that path. Not if I could help it. So I began treating my health like the most valuable asset in my portfolio. And unlike money, this asset required more than saving. It required daily deposits of care. That meant saying no to certain things. No to another late night at the office. No to the second drink that I knew would steal my energy the next day. No to the voice in my head that whispered, "You can skip the workout. You can start tomorrow." Instead, I started saying yes. Yes to morning walks. Yes to stretching on the patio while the sun rose. Yes to cooking real meals instead of fast food eaten in the car. These were not glamorous changes, but they were life-giving. What surprised me most was how quickly small choices stacked up. Like compounding interest, they began to build momentum. And as my health improved, so did my clarity. I saw with new eyes how fragile life island, and how foolish it was to sacrifice health for the illusion of success. The irony is that in our younger years, we are willing to trade health for money because we believe time is infinite. We stay late at the office. We grind through weekends. We convince ourselves that one day, decades from now, we will rest. But when you reach 60, you begin to see the truth. You realize time is not infinite. It is the most limited currency of all. I think often about the three resources every one of us manages: time, health, money. In your 20s and 30s, you have plenty of health, some time, but usually not much money. So you trade health and time to earn money. By your 50s and 60s, the equation changes. You may finally have the money, but your health and time are shrinking. And if you are not careful, you arrive at the finish line with a full bank account and an empty body. That is not victory, that is tragedy. I knew I needed to change. Not tomorrow, not next year, now. So I began creating rhythms that would protect me. At night, I put away the phone and wrote a few lines of gratitude before bed. In the morning, I stretched, lifted weights, and breathed deeply. I made time for my mind, not just my muscles. And slowly, I began to feel alive again. There is a line I repeat to myself often. If you do not make time for your wellness, you will be forced to make time for your illness. And I refuse to let illness write the final chapters of my story. Still, the hardest shift was not physical. It was mental. I had to stop treating sacrifice as a badge of honor. For too long, I believed the lie that the more I gave up today, the more I would gain tomorrow. But the truth is, tomorrow is never guaranteed. The only thing we truly have is today. That is why I began squeezing the juice out of every single day. Not someday. This day. The one right in front of me. Sometimes that meant watching a sunset with my wife, holding her hand as the sky turned orange and gold. Sometimes it meant flying to see my daughters just because I missed them. Sometimes it was as simple as reading a good book on the porch without guilt. These moments were not distractions from life. They were life. And they were sweeter because I finally had the energy to enjoy them. Now, when I look back, I see the years I wasted chasing numbers in a bank account. I do not regret saving. Financial independence is a blessing. But I do regret the nights I skipped dinner with my family. I regret the vacations I postponed. I regret believing that success was worth more than sleep, laughter, and presence. The truth is, money can buy you options. It can buy you freedom, but it cannot buy you health. and it cannot buy you more time with the people you love. That realization was my turning point. It was the climax of 60 years of trial and error. And once I saw it, I could not unsee it. From that moment, I knew my wealth had one true purpose: to serve my health, to serve my relationships, to serve the experiences that make life worth living. Because in the end, what is the point of a full wallet if you are too sick to dance, too weak to travel, too tired to laugh? I do not want to leave this earth with regrets. I want to leave it knowing I squeezed out every drop of joy, every ounce of connection, every moment of wonder. And that begins with honoring my health. After I came to terms with the truth that health matters more than wealth, a new question began to rise inside me. If I was no longer living just to accumulate, then what exactly was I living for? The answer came slowly, but it was clear once it arrived. I was living for joy, for adventure, for connection, for the kind of moments that do not show up on a balance sheet but live forever in your heart. That realization forced me into another transition, one I never expected to struggle with. I had to learn how to spend. Sounds strange, doesn't it? We spend most of our adult lives learning how to save. We clip coupons, build retirement accounts, sacrifice weekends. We are praised for discipline, for restraint, for being responsible. But nobody teaches you how to flip that switch when the time comes. Nobody tells you that after decades of saving, spending can feel wrong, even dangerous. I saw it again and again as a financial advisor. Men and women who had worked so hard to build a nest egg, but when retirement finally arrived, they were afraid to touch it. They lived small lives, pinching pennies, as though they were still waiting for the future. But the future was already here, and they were too scared to enjoy it. I did not want to be one of them, so I practiced. At first it was simple. I bought plane tickets without guilt. I said yes to dinners out instead of always cooking at home. I booked a weekend trip with my wife, even though the spreadsheet in my head told me to wait. And every time I gave myself permission to enjoy what I had earned, I felt lighter, happier, freer. That was when I realized, saving and spending are like muscles. We build the saving muscle when we are young. But if we do not exercise the spending muscle, we risk never knowing how to fully live. The true badge of honor is not how much you can stockpile, but how well you can use what you have to enrich your days and bless the people around you. When I started spending with purpose, I began to see my money differently. It was not a wall to hide behind. It was a tool. A way to create experiences. A way to build memories. A way to leave a legacy not of numbers, but of love. I used to think the greatest gift I could give my daughters was an inheritance. Now I believe the greatest gift I can give them is memories. Moments when I showed up. Moments when I laughed with them, traveled with them, listened to them. Money fades. Memories remain. That shift changed the way I measure success. It is no longer about the size of my portfolio. It is about the size of my joy, the strength of my relationships, the peace I feel when I wake up each morning. I know now that life is not meant to be postponed. Too many people live as if happiness is a destination. They tell themselves, one day, when the house is paid off, one day, when the kids are grown, one day, when I retire. But one day is not promised. This day, island. This moment. Right here. That is the only guarantee. So I have chosen to stop waiting. To stop delaying joy until some future chapter. Instead, I am writing joy into today's chapter. Because at 60, I am painfully aware that the chapters ahead are fewer than the chapters behind. And that is not a tragedy. It is a gift. It is the reminder I need to cherish what I have while I still have it. There is one more truth I want to leave with you. At the end of our lives, people will not remember the car you drove, the title you carried, or the house you lived in. They will remember how you made them feel. They will remember the warmth of your presence, the way you laughed, the way you loved. That is the legacy worth fighting for. And so, if you are listening to this in your 50s, your 60s, or even later, I want you to hear me clearly. It is not too late. You can still choose joy. You can still choose health. You can still choose to spend what you have built on what truly matters. You can still stop pretending, stop competing, and start living. Do not wait for the perfect moment. Do not wait for permission. Life is happening now. Grab it. Taste it. Squeeze every drop of sweetness you can. When I look back, I no longer want to count the mistakes or the wasted years. I want to count the moments of laughter, the meals shared, the sunsets watched, and I want you to do the same. Because in the end, none of us will wish we had saved more. We will wish we had lived more. So, let this be your reminder. You have permission to live. You have permission to enjoy. You have permission to be fully, unapologetically yourself. And if this message has spoken to you, let me invite you to take one more step. Do not just stop here. I created another message for you, one that goes deeper. It is about 8 things to stop doing in your 50s and 60s if you truly want to enjoy your retirement. I believe it can help you avoid regrets and step boldly into a life of freedom. So when this ends, go watch that video. And remember, your best years are not behind you. They are still in front of you, if you are willing to claim them. Thank you for spending these minutes with me. Take care of your health, cherish your relationships, and make today count.